They say hospitals are where lives begin and where they end, places of healing, of safety. But sometimes behind those sterile white walls, something goes wrong. Something gets covered up, and what should have been routine becomes a living nightmare. These are true medical horror stories, based on real fears, real mistakes, and the terrifying truth that not every patient leaves whole. Sometimes, they don't leave alone. Raina had waited years to become a mother. Her pregnancy had been smooth. Her delivery was scheduled. A routine C-section. No big deal. The baby came out healthy. 10 fingers, 10 toes. The doctors smiled. Her husband cried. Everything felt perfect until she got home. The first night she woke up in a cold sweat. She thought it was hormones. But then came the chills, a strange burning feeling in her stomach, and a sharp pain that shot down her legs. Still, she smiled through it, told herself it was normal, post-surgery healing. But by day 4, she started smelling something. It was faint at first, like rust, then stronger, rotten, sour, like something dying inside her. She bathed 3 times a day, washed her sheets, changed her dressings. Nothing helped. Her husband said he couldn't smell anything. But her baby, he started screaming every time she held him. Then came the fevers. 1 to 3, 1 to 4. She couldn't eat. She couldn't sleep. Her incision site looked fine, but her body felt like it was decaying from the inside. She dragged herself back to the hospital, sat in the waiting room for hours, holding her stomach and sweating through her clothes. Finally, they ran blood work and gave her an X-ray. The nurse brought the results to the surgeon, and that's when everything changed. He walked into the room pale as a ghost. His hands were shaking. He told her, "Raina, we need to take you into emergency surgery. Right now." She asked him what was wrong. He didn't answer. They strapped her down and wheeled her in. Her husband wasn't allowed to come. No explanations. Just a team of surgeons waiting. When she woke up, the room was dead silent. No celebration, no smiles. They told her they had removed a surgical clamp from her body. Still clamped shut. Left inside her after the delivery. It had latched onto a loop of her intestine, cutting off blood flow. The tissue had begun to rot. She was dying slowly from the inside out. They apologized, blamed it on human error, said it would be reported, said she'd heal. But Raina wasn't thinking about the clamp. She was thinking about the man who delivered her baby. She asked to speak to him. The nurse looked confused. "What do you mean?" "There was no male surgeon on duty that day," Raina insisted. She remembered his face. Blue gloves, pale eyes, a slight limp. The nurse brought out a photo of the team from that day. None of them matched. So Raina searched on her own. She dug through the hospital archives online. And she found him. Same pale eyes, same limp. But the photo was old, faded. The man had died in a car crash in 1999. The hospital he worked at was shut down years ago, condemned after a string of surgical accidents. Raina looked at the clamp they removed from her. It was stamped with a logo she didn't recognize. Turns out that logo belonged to the shutdown hospital, not the one she delivered at. She went back to the hospital demanding answers. They told her she must be confused. There were no such records, no such surgeon, no such clamp. She went home, but things didn't go back to normal. She still felt the weight in her stomach, still smelled the rot on her skin, and every year on the exact date of her surgery, she wakes up to find something on her nightstand. A silver clamp, clean, closed, and warm. Devin wasn't scared of hospitals. He was 28, healthy and in good shape. All he needed was a simple hernia repair. In and out, no big deal. He didn't even take off work. Just scheduled it for a Friday and figured he'd be back to normal by Monday. But during the procedure, something went wrong. He started crashing. His heart rate dropped. His blood pressure was dangerously low. He started going pale fast. The surgeon called for a transfusion. Quickly, they gave him a full bag of blood. He stabilized. Surgery finished. And just like that, it was over. Or so they thought. When Devin woke up, he had no idea anything unusual had happened. But the moment he got home, things started to feel off. He was dizzy, cold. He saw flashes of something when he blinked. Faces, a hallway, a man screaming. He thought it was just the medication. The dreams came first. Every night he found himself in a hospital room, but not his own. He was lying on a gurney, surrounded by people who didn't seem to know he was there. He couldn't move, couldn't speak. Then a voice would start screaming, "I'm still here. I'm not dead." He started waking up drenched in sweat, gasping for air. But the dreams didn't stop. They got worse. He'd wake up with bruises on his arms that hadn't been there the night before. He'd find his phone open on strange web searches he didn't remember typing. One night, he found a message written in the steam of his bathroom mirror. 5 words, "This isn't your life." That's when he started digging. He called the hospital to ask for his surgical records. And that's when he found out what really happened. There had been a blood transfusion error. He'd been accidentally given someone else's blood. Not just the wrong blood type, the wrong person entirely. The blood had been prepped for another patient that same night, a man named Alan Gates. Alan had been in critical condition. He'd been bleeding out after a violent accident. But there had been a mix-up. Alan never got his blood. He died. And Devin lived. Devin thought that was the end of it. Just a tragic mistake. Until the dreams turned into visions. He stopped recognizing his own reflection. His voice started sounding different in recordings. His handwriting changed. He would wake up in places he didn't remember going. Then came the memories, not his own. Memories of a man lying on the side of the road, bleeding out. Memories of a woman sobbing over him. A name, Maya. A number, 4175. He found himself whispering them in his sleep. It got worse. He blacked out for a full day. No memory, no explanation. When he checked his phone's GPS, it showed him driving to an old apartment building across town. One he'd never been to. But when he got there, a woman opened the door. She gasped and whispered, "Alan?" That's when Devin knew. He wasn't alone in his body. Alan never passed on. His soul had come with the blood, and now Devin feels him growing stronger, pushing forward, taking control. Every time Devin looks in the mirror now, he sees Alan staring back. And the worst part? Sometimes he lets him. Lila had always hated hospitals. The smell, the lights, the way time seemed to slow down inside those walls. But when doctors found a tumor behind her left eye, she didn't have a choice. It wasn't cancerous, but it was growing, pushing against her brain. They said if she waited too long, she could lose her vision, or worse. The surgery was scheduled for the next week. A delicate operation. They'd have to drill into her skull. She tried not to think about it. They told her she'd be asleep the whole time, that she wouldn't feel a thing. They were wrong. Lila woke up on the table, not all at once, not with a jolt, just a slow awareness. She couldn't move, couldn't speak, couldn't open her eyes, but she could hear everything. The beeping machines, the hum of lights, the soft voices of surgeons saying things she wasn't supposed to hear. And then she felt it. The pressure, the vibration through her skull, the cold breeze on the raw part of her head. She was awake, paralyzed, but fully aware. She tried to scream. Nothing came out. Her body wasn't hers anymore. And then something strange happened. She felt herself lift. Not physically, not really, but mentally, spiritually. She was floating, looking down at the operating table, at her own open skull, at the doctors working on her brain. And then she saw him. In the corner of the room. Not a surgeon, not a nurse. A shadow. Tall, still, watching. It had no face, no features, just darkness. And it wasn't watching the surgery. It was watching her, floating. The moment she looked at it, it turned its head, and everything went black. When she woke up in recovery, she screamed so loudly they had to sedate her. She told the nurses she had been awake. They told her it wasn't possible. They said her brain activity showed total unconsciousness, but she knew what she saw, what she felt. At home things got worse. Her senses changed. She could hear whispers through walls, feel static in the air, and the dreams. Every night she was back on that table, but this time she wasn't floating. She was trapped, and the shadow was standing over her. She started seeing things during the day, too. Doors opening on their own, her reflection blinking after she turned away. Electronics glitching when she entered a room. Then one night she found a piece of paper on her pillow, a note in handwriting she didn't recognize. It said, "You brought it back." She checked her security camera footage. At exactly 3:33 a.m. the feed cut out. When it returned, there was a still frame of her, standing in the hallway, eyes open, but she had no memory of leaving bed. She went back to the hospital, desperate for answers, begging someone to listen. They pulled her file. It was gone. No record of the surgery. No names of the doctors. No images. It was like it never happened. But it did. She remembers every second. And she knows now. She died for a moment on that table. Just long enough for something to slip through. Something that followed her back. And every time she falls asleep, she sees it, closer, waiting, patient. Because it knows one day she'll leave the door open again. So the next time you check into a hospital, take a look around. Double-check your wristband. Ask for the doctor's name, because not every scar comes from the surgery. Some things follow you home, and once they're inside you, there's no cutting them out.